All right, here we go again. Buckle up.
You are listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
All right, we continue on here. A very intelligent yet simple concept. The two-way street the United States was, but no longer is. Bunch of one-way, you know whaters. So, where did the LGBTQ go wrong? And if I speak about it, they'll try to berate me as I want them to live in the shadows. But I'm going to say it this way. And there's other things I'll speak about, including ICE. So it's not just LGBTQ. There are LGBTQ clergy that shudder every time they see an LGBTQ person walking down the street half naked or completely naked. They don't care what you do in your bedroom, in your private space. And you know what? They coincide with the conservatives when it comes to that. You see. So, but by doing that, you allowed a larger movement to move against you. Somewhat of a correction. The corrections on this planet usually go over. So don't think it's just some church member that has a problem with what you're doing in the pride parades. And again, you know that you stick your tongue in another person's mouth to kiss them. And heterosexuals will do this too. But again, you're trying to get somewhere. And if you think you're going to, disrupt some people around you that aren't gay because you want to be provocative, they don't even like when heterosexuals do that, a lot of people. And again, these people were here before you were here, and the money that you're making and the world you live in was created and empowered by these people, of course, with God's blessing. But so there's a reality to this world. One of the things they're doing is to teach young people to disrespect those that came before them. And it's a strategy. But it's what lost the Democratic Party the presidency, most likely. And it'll lose everything else pretty soon if they don't stop it. Because it's creeping up. Make me a cup of coffee here. Midday. I've been using I'm making it lighter and smaller cups. I have to make a second one. So again, don't tell me Trump did this or this person did that or the church guy did this. There are limitations. You have rights, but there are limitations on what you're doing with those rights. And it's not always unlawful. It's just not expedient. That's in the scriptures. You can do things that are not expedient. Although in many cases you have violated the law and got away with it. So there are Christians doing crazy things, but it's incumbent upon the LGBTQ community to limit their activity so it doesn't disrupt the other way on the street. See, two ways. They didn't have power to diminish what you were doing until you went over. But many of you live lives that you really can't calculate, and maybe don't even know how to calculate your losses, because you're being propped up until the boom hits. I mean, people want to live in a world where everybody is living in the shadows, actually. I don't want to know anything about your life I don't need to know. I mean, I want to see people that are addicted so I can help them. I want to see people that are hungry so I can help them. I want to see people that are unhoused. But I don't want to know anything about your life. I don't need to. But you want to shove it in my face and block me from seeing the real issues in the world. It's already been seen. And again, the Democratic Party made big mistakes. You didn't manage that money. There's no way that we're going to put out any additional social program money beyond what we've already put out when we look at the billions you've squandered. Probably it's in the trillions. There has been reparations, so knock it off. All the Republicans have to do is take every program since, let's go with 1970. From 1970 to 2020, how much money has been spent on the Black community, elevating it, feeding it, sending it to school, giving it preference in school before anyone else? That's reparations. So again, you're going to anger the other side. And on the other side, there are some middle people who aren't the other side, but will become the other side. So ICE, I've told you about ICE. The Democrats are really angering people that respect law enforcement, and that includes people that would have voted for them had they not done that. ICE is not only involved in arresting immigrants. It is a law enforcement entity. You don't always see them, even though you think you always see them. That's one of the keys to law enforcement. Let them see you, and then they believe that's you, but you're somewhere else. But I will tell you that ICE has stopped your daughters from being raped, and we can go to a gazillion immigrant cases and find that. But I will tell you, they sit on surveillance, and why a sheriff would give them the high five and all that is because they work cases together. Non-immigrant cases also. ICE will sit on a neighborhood looking for a certain immigrant fugitive, right? Or alien fugitive, I guess, is who they usually are. But there are those that had attained immigrant status who were fugitives. And they will gather intelligence for their operation, but any excess intelligence, and I'm not telling you it's always turned in. I mean, yeah, they might find some marijuana, let it go, even though it's illegal, that kind of thing. But there are limits on what they'll look the other way on because they got to get their job done. And sometimes it's not expedient to arrest everyone. There's that expedient thing again. But they will turn in intelligence about wanted people and others, and then the state and local officers go in and arrest them. Prostitution, narcotics distribution, guys that are getting women all screwed up in the head and then taking advantage of them. Well, they look at guys like that just to figure out, what the hell's going on there, because it could lead to prostitution. So there's a lot of workup to investigating prostitution at, say, the soccer the soccer matches and things like that, and of course Super Bowl and all that. There are people that have to be looked at to figure out what their part in it is. So again, you have ICE. ICE is giving them intelligence about what's going on sexually within their city. So of course, he 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, the sheriff deputies might be going after somebody who committed homicide, murdered someone. Might call up, like, hey, ICE, you got a couple people we can use? Yeah, sure. So it's not the world the Democrats tried painting. So the whole thing is, it's Trump, it's ICE. No, it's not. You don't get to come against the peace plan with Iran just because Trump did something to Biden. Metaphysics don't work that way. Because God sees it as independent efforts. And no, it's not only the Democrats. Republicans do some of the similar stuff. They've went too far against LGBTQ and have lost some of their vote. So there's a preacher, and he's pretty eloquent, and he's saying he put on I don't know what what do they call that thing? I guess it's like a tallis. It's a Christian tallis, but it's a pride flag one, and he received all sorts of guff for it. And he says, I can take this off at the end of the day. Gay people can't. And he's right, but there's a limitation to how right he is. Don't take your victim status, all of you, and try to rule other people down, because then your victim status is gone. Abraham stood up for a community of people that included gay people. He asked God not to destroy Sodom. And God did not destroy Sodom for being gay. They were already gay all day when Lot showed up. He walked around there with them being gay for some time. But when they tried to force gay sexuality on what was represented as the angels with Lot, that's when God destroyed Sodom. So as church members, as Jews, as the religious community, you have to realize every jot and tittle, every little detail in what God was doing and what God has said. So again, we even have it. I mean, it's not necessarily segregation. It's kind of self-segregation to a certain degree, so that you're living comfortably. I spoke about going to the Castro section of San Francisco, and I was on detail. I didn't have money. I was going through a divorce. I didn't have money for a gym. 24-hour gym was, I don't even remember what it was, some godly amount for 1 week. So I had a Gold's Gym membership that was good all across the country. But my quandary was it was all major gay neighborhoods. I got hit on when I went over there. But I spoke about, there was a woman in a store, a Latina woman. It was in a fitness store, like, buy supplements. Right? Just down, I think it was a Castro section, and it was about maybe not even a block from, like across the street, a couple stores down, I think, from the Gold's Gym. And it was weird, because you're like, how do you communicate? Because she, all intents and purposes, like 80%, maybe even more of the women that were in that community were probably gay. So how do you, like, I don't think I want to have sex with her, but how do you communicate heterosexuality in a completely gay neighborhood? So it was interesting, because, it's like a reversal. Because, they'll be offended, How dare you think I'm straight? It's like that. So again, even in the scripture, there's teachings such as in Job, God does not despise anyone. And there's also a key to the judgment and how God judges. Nobody in this day and age will go to hell for simply being gay. There's no doubt. I don't even know if it was true back then. Well, because Yeshua and his people already had figured out metaphysics and evil eye. Yeah, people are gay because of evil eye, a lot of them. So if you can't heal it, then where does God put it? God puts it, a person can't be anything else. And that's what that preacher was saying. And that, I find that to be true. But again, he has to understand that there are limitations. And he did not articulate that. And that's what we have to do. We have to begin articulating a two-way street, because everybody's going to try to make their point. And I'll try to find this video with Srila Prabhupada, because he speaks about, people making their point. Even himself, he jokes about himself too. He says, you and I trying to make our points. He first talking about God and how God is, how the planets stay up. So again, you'll use science to say how the planets stay up, but there's a reality of how that science was created and how it exists. And that's, God. And again, there's manipulations in the physical existence away from what God would have it be. When you pass on, God can take you to outer space as a spiritual being, and it's a whole different world. There's no real destruction there. Nobody gets hurt, but it looks the same way. So you'll be, you could be traveling through space and all of a sudden the big eruption of flames, but it doesn't burn you. It's just a light show. Like a roller coaster. So, well, ICE has saved even the people that hate ICE. A huge intelligence effort that has located fraudsters. It's not only immigrants. Located fraudsters, narcos, sex traffickers, because they're on surveillance. And they're not going to report everything, but there are things that they'll call the sheriff up, they'll call the marshals up, they'll call FBI up. The Democrats are lying about who ICE is. And I don't think it's going to bid them well. It's not going to pay dividends when it finally gets to the election. Because there's abuses everywhere from these aliens. They should not be here. Now, do I want to feed them? Yes, I can feed them much more efficiently in their home nation. We don't have to send them free checks when they come across the border so they can go to their favorite taco joint and buy a $15 meal. That same meal in Mexico, they could actually even go to the restaurant. It's probably like, $5 or less. Now, narcotics has made it more expensive in Mexico also, because the narcos have so much money and their cronies have so much money. Hasn't increased the quality of life all that much. Yeah, the narcos have great life. So again, we need to learn two-way street. We allow immigration, but we don't allow abuse of immigration. And there are valid, if you want valid amnesty cases to be greeted well by the Republican Party, then make sure that's what's going on. Don't stand up for the fraud. And again, there's a correction going on. They just got Larry Krasner, I guess his name is, the DA in Philadelphia. He's scamming. Now, I don't have a problem with no death penalty, but don't be playing a game with the courts. The U.S. attorney, or not the U.S. attorney, state's attorney, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, his office has to review all petitions by Krasner seeking to overturn and minimize penalties in certain in all cases, actually. I mean, fraud is everywhere. I told you this for like at least 15 years. Probably longer than that, probably 20 years. That's half the reason well, you understand, they were killing me and I let it go. I mean, I didn't know that much, but you know, I was kind of like, you know, the people making money everywhere, committing fraud. It is what it is. I'll focus on my little piece of life and, you know, still do charity. I used to give to the, that federal campaign, the money. My wife and I were thinking about maybe before it all, you know, got killed by the deep state, we're thinking about possibly adopting a child that nobody else wanted to adopt. That was one of my federal campaign deductions, was to a charity for that. We didn't have any long drawn out discussions. It wasn't like happening tomorrow, but we were, you know, we gave money in that direction and we thought about it. I fixed it all. And little did I know that the deep state is the ones that screwed it up the first time too, while we were in Philly. And I fixed it, and then they broke it again. So again, two-way street is very important. A bunch of one-way, you know, waters, that don't work. There's no reason to take a child and glam them up for transgender. There's just no reason. Well, psychology used to be honest. And again, I'm sure that gender dysphoria exists, but I think there's possible other remedies. But once upon a time, if you studied psychology, and maybe it's still in there, maybe I'll look it up. It says that children will go through periods of that type of sexuality. Not that it's anything other than thoughts in their mind. But again, what you're all doing is telling them the thoughts in their mind is forever, and you might as well go now before you kill yourself. I mean, really, that's kind of the lunacy. That if you don't take care of this now, you're going to kill yourself. Ah! But yet, the other side of the coin, the other side of the street, isn't cooperating either. That we need to really do research, we need to be sensitive to what's happening, and we need to figure it out. The co-ed changing, what do they call it? Locker rooms, that doesn't work. There's no penis that needs to be hanging out in a girl's locker room in 6th grade. I'm just telling you that. What you do is you create a private space. Now, something happened at Planet Fitness that I didn't think was going to happen, because they did have private changing space. So I figured most trans people would be, I thought it was great, because this is the two-way street where they have a private changing cubicle in the locker room. So essentially, if you're trans, you go in there and you don't, have that, you don't go over that line and over, the center line. That's good. Hey, Hashem probably forgot. I give all the credit to God for that. The center line on a two-way street. So you don't go, it's illegal to go over the center line. But apparently some woman was in, I'd have to read it. I don't want to give you misinformation, but I believe somebody went naked. And she complained and they canceled her membership. Well, because that's judgment of her. I tried to explain, the 65, 70-year-old woman, and I guess from her 65-year-old to her 70-year-old, her and I would take walks every so often, and speak about things in the daytime. And she, we were recorded while we were speaking. When I was at her door, I'd go to her door and talk to her sometimes. So they put a camera up there. And they try to make me paranoid by responding to what I said on camera. But I think they ended up being paranoid, saying, he set us up. Well, because they have a right to what they feel comfortable with. In no world is a penis hanging out in a female locker room considered okay. It's just some scam of liberal financial superiority during a Democratic Party presidency. That's really what it is. You have the power of FBI. You have the power of the purse strings. And if people want money, they cooperate with what you say. Well, she was a great woman. She loved everyone. Gay people could walk up to her. She turned a little, but see, she got jaded because of all that. And she turned, she actually went more conservative. Her and her son were like, I wouldn't say they're extremists, but that's a valid concern. That's not an extreme view to say, hey, I don't want a male sex organ in my bathroom on the toilet I'm going to sit on. And again, of course, her son is there, but that's her son. She has a right to that. That's a mainstream thought. Now, if she said you should be thrown in prison for, let's call it gayness in public, then she went over the line. But she didn't go for that. She believed you have your. All right, looks like I'm back on. I had to turn the VPN on. So again, it's developing, and it benefits Trump too to develop the two-way street. No, LGBTQ, that doesn't mean bisexual. Got to translate for them. I know the word trans. But we don't want to become so diverse that we lose the ability to communicate either. It's funny, the word salad I spoke about the UPS woman used. I was attracted to her initially, and I wouldn't say I wasn't attracted to her, but I know once she used the LGBTQ, ultra left wing, and I don't think she was gay. At the most, she probably was bisexual. But once she used the word salad, I'm like, nah, it's not going to work. Because she'll expect me. I'm a white male. She would expect me to whip myself all day. No, LGBTQ, it's not that either. So again, these sexualities are things that have existed the entire time, and we've found out about all these famous people that had these secret lives. But again, the idea that it's not living in the shadows. There's just limitations of what we all accept. Now, if a church marched down that street in Castro that I speak about, you would be offended by that. And they could be completely, you'd feel like they were overdressed. Now, as soon as I got there, I actually left the one drive. It was Castro and one other neighborhood. I don't remember the other neighborhood. But they were both like the icon neighborhoods of LGBTQism. So I went to one first. I'm a big stair step. I was a big stair stepper guy back then. So I'm on the stair stepper, and this guy walks past me and gets on this, but he's eyeing me like like a man would a woman. But I mean, a man that wants to have sex with a woman, not a man that's just trying to meet a woman. He's glaring at me, Yeah. And he gets up on the stair stepper next to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be cool about everything. Let me just act natural. And then he kept looking over at me like really, like not just, hey, how you doing, buddy? Not one of those. So he kept kind of like, he probably had, sexual issues, I would say, as far as being too forward. And again, not respecting that center line between our two stair stepping machines. So I left. I think I went to Tan real quick, and then I left and went to the one I think in Castro, which was, much more respectful. I gave him hands. I would look at the gay women. What's he looking at a woman for? Oh, I get it. You're not from around here, are you? And I was like right in the middle of that thing with what's her name. Just like the quote unquote mysterious Jonathan Luna girlfriend. The woman I don't even know anything about, really. So again, that is the issue: the two-way street versus the one-way street. And the more one-way you are, the less likely people will vote for you at this point. I mean, the swing voter. The swing voter enjoys and believes in two-way streets, but maintaining, your lane and not crossing the center line. So, again, some of the pride parades and pride celebrations and some of the other things that are going on go as far as if the, what was that Baptist church? We told signs calling people fags. See if I can find it. Yeah, they're doing something to my internet connection. Westboro. So it would be a month long of Westboro Baptist Church everywhere. I mean, that if you happen to be LGBTQ, that's what it'd be like. Right? In a lot of what's going on. Nonverbal harassment does exist, especially if you're wearing a G-string walking down Main Street. Or a thong, whatever you would call it. As a man with your boobies out. But again, it doesn't have to go that far. So again, you know the sensitivities around you. and there's no reason to cross that center lane. And there it is. Their page says, so I'm on the I'm on the on the Google, and it's their actually homepage for their church, and the listing says Westboro Baptist Church of Topeka, Kansas. God hates fags and all proud sinners. Repent or perish. I guarantee there's people in Westboro Baptist Church that have cast their will, cast spells on people so that they would be gay. Sometimes successful and sometimes not successful. It's more, a lot of what's going on there is sociopathy and narcissism. There's a big bust in Pittsburgh. So again, it's the idea, it's a psychological warfare technique. Trump's the enemy. So it's all about, no matter what Republican Party does, it's not for the nation, it's for Trump. And people in government will do things for their boss all the time. So you throw this nonsense up. What you need to look at as the Democratic Party is all that fraud. What the hell is going on? All that money being spent for nothing, and you swore up and down that you needed more money. The cab driver whose cab was destroyed, French Montana, did he give him the money or was it GoFundMe? I think it's a GoFundMe. Yeah, GoFundMe. Got him $75,000, I think. Right. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, stuff like that has happened through history. But again, the spirit of the thing has changed. It's much more over the center line. So again, I'll tell you what, they won't speak about it, but there are immigrants that are happy that the government is fixing the illegal alien problem because they have to live there. And it's not a good thing that the others are there. Now, there's some they won't agree with, but again, you have to maintain a certain system or nothing works. In fact, the world's upside down. People will vouch for the biggest evil, the biggest criminal, as if it's God on earth. And the nice people, the Mother Teresa's, they run into the ground, say, get her out of here. She ain't giving out. I'm serious. That's the way the world really is, man. And I'm not approved by any stretch of the imagination. Now, my neighbor woman was a little bit of a prude, but she wasn't saying that you should be put in jail for being gay. She was simply saying, stay out of my bathroom. And again, if you feel like you need some bathroom space for privacy for people that are trans, then build single stall bathrooms. I told you that from the first day. But again, you can't radicalize that. You can't cause extremism off of single stall bathrooms. You can't cause people to pass that center line and drive in the other lane and run everybody over. All right. That's about it. And I guess you get my point. And that guy was, yeah, you can make an argument for LGBTQ all day, but you have to understand that some of that backlash they brought on themselves. And again, I'm not telling you that the people on the other side are altruistic either. But again, us people that are have had it with your bullshit, all of you, and wasting the money in this world for your bullshits. I told you for decades that the fraud is huge. So you don't have to worry about some person on, and they found enough people that weren't supposed to be on there. But I said, that isn't the big fraud. That isn't where you're going to make your real money. And as far as what I meant is somebody that was borderline disabled, maybe shouldn't be on the program. You know, I'm not speaking about out and out fraud where the person obviously, you know, has a job and then they're on, you know, the programs and things like that, or has money and they're on the programs. Well, because the Republicans, when they were speaking about it, sounded like they just wanted to throw people off of the programs because, you know, nobody should get entitlements. And I said, you destroy the economy, you do that. It's part of the money. And probably will always, to a certain degree. Well, now that you're discovering the fraud, it doesn't seem, you know, when you finally get to the end of the road, it's not going to seem, you know, overwhelming to have a social safety net that works. Because all of that fraud money, I mean, there's money we're not going to recoup. Anything past 5 years ago, we're not going to be able to recoup. Unless it's somebody that's a current contractor that we say, hey, you want to keep your contracts? We got to work this out. Otherwise, they hit the road. But there's there's trillions of dollars that we can't recoup. That was meant to feed people, meant to, you know, pay for disability. We could have gave people double disability checks. I did have a problem. I don't know where it is now. They may have increased it, but they were like getting $750 in right before COVID, I guess, or about COVID. You know, that whole time period, right before COVID, like $750 a month and a SNAP, which was like $150. It's almost impossible. But again, a lot of people that were receiving it shouldn't. But there's nothing wrong with guaranteeing income and insurance. And another thing is disability insurance is something more recent. So that would be a place in the world where if you wanted to minimize real disability, like government disability, that you would build a program that offers disability insurance. And then they would, again, it'd probably end up being something similar anyway. But again, obviously the fraud was there. Obviously people were in on it. I mean, they're talking about ICE, but you realize what's going on? The majority of these people are aliens and naturalized immigrants. I mean, you laughing stock in the world. Go to the United States. Their people don't get no money. We'll get it. Again, even the Somali kind of said it. Bragging about being big. You're just another fraudster, another crook. And again, that's what the deep state is. I go to Minnesota, him and his people attack me. And make up stories about who I'm actually not. And who they actually are. While the dirty cops pay them more money while they're, you know, informant money. Their informants are fraudsters. Government money. It's monopoly money. It's not real. I told you that for years. They got so much of it. They don't care. That's how Comey paid people. That's how Brennan paid people. That's how Rush paid people. And the names I've been speaking over the years. That's how they paid people, including the U.S. Marshal Service. Contracts. multi-million dollar contracts. It's how they paid their deep state cronies to attack former employees. Informant funds. Hey, go come on to that guy over there. Act like you're interested, and then when I tell you, then dissy. He's gay anyway. I mean, they're nuts, man. This is the kind of shit I work with. Absolute garbage. So don't tell me you know what happened. What the hell is CIA doing in my and my wife and my family's life to begin with? Be careful flying today. You may get swatted out of the sky by the Almighty for payback time. Now stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. God will handle everything.